Welcome back. Welcome. It's 2019 and welcome to another edition of What Matters. And this episode, we start out in a very purposeful way. I'm so excited that Nicole O, Salmon, just like the fish you say, right?
Just like the fish.
I keep trying to pronounce the L and make it fancy.
Yeah.
But Nicole O, Salmon, our purpose coach, is here today to lead us through. So Nicole wears many, many hats. We have purpose coach, minister, author. There was another thing, life coach as well.
Mm-hmm.
Do you differentiate the two between life coach and purpose coach?
I for branding purposes, yes, but ultimately what I do is life coaching, lifestyle coaching.
Is lifestyle
Yes,
coaching.
Yeah.
Okay, now Nicole, a lot of people now. The reason that I asked Nicole to be on the show is that I had the pleasure of being at an event with her last year, and she was one of the key speakers. Now, a lot of people are very moving when they speak. They have the gift of communication, and Nicole is also a preacher, so you have that delivery style. But it was the content of her message that really struck me, and not just the delivery is amazing, but the content. And it was structured, but it was heartfelt, and it really I did not see a face in the room it did not resonate with. And so I reached out, I put on my brave girl outfit, and I reached out, and she was like, sure. And if that tells you anything, please ask for what you want. Do not be afraid to ask for what you want, because even if the answer is no, you're no further back than when you started.
That's right.
And my answer was yes. So I got the privilege of bringing Nicole in front of my wonderful audience to share some of her message, some of her coaching. So please get your pens, share this message out. You can always catch us on the replay. But Nicole's going to go over 4 major points, and that is purpose alignment, purpose clarity, purpose mindset, and purpose planning. But before we start there, I want Nicole to share with us, how did you end up on this path?
Wow. I keep, every time I get asked that question, I'm like, I really need to package a concise response. It's always really hard because I feel like I walked up to it over the last 40 years. I started out actually in human services, social services for years, but there was always an evident gift. Like even from childhood, I was bossy. I was telling people what to do. If people had goals, I'm like, this is what you need to do to get there. Like that was always, no matter where I was, that was a part of
I love she called her bossiness a gift. I love that. My gift was being bossy.
Well, it was the gift untrained. So the gift untrained was bossy. The gift trained and refined is the purpose coach, right? Mm-hmm. And so I walked up to it. I mean, my mother passed away when I was very young. I was about 17, 18 at the time. She passed from breast cancer. So I've been living on my own since my teens. And then shortly after, I got pregnant with my first son. So I was an unwed pregnant teen in the church, right?
Good times.
In a Pentecostal Caribbean church, which none of those things really fit together. And when that happened, all the potential, all the gifts, everything that made me light up and made people see something, there's something special about that little girl. I felt like that experience canceled my purpose. And I thought that whatever it is that God had for me to accomplish in the earth or to contribute or whatever impact, that mistake, that bad decision
just
it's over.
right.
It's done. And so I lived that way under fear, under guilt, under condemnation for years. There would be time the gift would bubble up, and I believe that's how I describe purpose in the book. I always talk about the fact that you can't turn it off. At some point, life places a demand on the gift that's in you. And there were moments when life was placing a demand, but I could hear that little negative voice going, "Who you think you are? Sit down.
You're pregnant, mom. You need to sit down.
Baby mama, drama, right?"
Yeah.
And so I thought that was just gonna have to be my new name tag. And so, fast forwarding, I eventually found myself back into church. I say church and not God because that relationship with God never ended as a result of that. And that's such a beautiful thing. But I found myself back into kind of church life, into ministry and work, and eventually into seminary and becoming a minister. And I remember one day I had a really impactful dream. And in the dream, there were some home invaders, and they had come behind me. They had cut me from ear to ear. And in the dream, I could literally feel the warmth of the blood leaving my body. And I hit the ground in the dream, and I knew, how you just know things in your dream? I knew that I had to play dead because they wanted me dead.
Right.
And so once they left, I got up. I started telling the other people in the room that, listen, they're going to come back. You need to equip yourself. And so there was a net in the room, opened it up. It had all these tools in it. People started to grab different tools. And as they were doing that in the dream, I was stopping them and saying, no, not that one. This one for you and this one for you. When I woke up, I spent a lot of time in prayer saying, God, what does this dream mean? Because I couldn't shake it. And God explained to me that the situation of becoming a young teenage mom, that was supposed to spiritually kill me. It was supposed to it was meant to kill purpose, but it didn't. And in the same way in the dream that I got back up, and again, God was like, the same thing is happening for you in life. And I'm calling you to equip other women and show them what tool, what gift, what thing is unique to them and help them grab a hold of it. And so,
here she is today.
Yeah.
And so how long have you been a purpose coach?
So full time, I've been coaching for about a year and a half. I've been full time on my own as the purpose coach. So I left my 9 to 5 in, what would that be, 2017, and launched into full time purpose.
Yay!
Yeah.
And I'm always excited to hear people tell other people that they were able to. I always use the analogy of a standard car where you got to get the gas and the clutch right there to start going.
Yeah.
And when people can let go of those full-time jobs, which often are, they're not purposeful, they serve a purpose, right? Like to put food on the table, the insurance and so forth. And so you've been doing this full-time for a year, and now that you are completely engulfed in it and this is what you do, have you found that your vision for your business has changed?
Absolutely. And I think that's the thing, like people think that to start something, you have to know exactly what it is you're doing, and you need to be able to see the complete end. And I didn't, to be honest. And I'm sure 3 years from now, if we were to sit down together like this again, it won't be completely different because the gift is the gift is the gift. But what it looks like in operation will change. When I started, I was still really fearful. So I was so sure that my focus had to be corporate training. So originally when I left my job, I thought, you know what, my strength is really around leadership development. I was doing training and facilitation before in the non-for-profit sector. So I thought that's what I would do because that would make the money, right? But I had that, that little feeling that wasn't it. And God was nudging me, and he's like, all right, if you think you know, then go get that money. And I started pitching and sending emails. And mind you, prior to this, I had never had to submit a proposal to train. Proposals came to me.
Right.
So here I am, finally, released to do this thing. I always said, man, imagine when I'm doing it on my own, I'm going to be making money. Nobody responded to any emails for a year.
Wow, a year.
A year. So it wasn't until I just surrendered to purpose and just said, all right, God, all right, I get it. I hear you loud and clear. We're going to shift gears. And as I started to do that, I gained even greater clarity as I moved in the direction. And we're going to talk about clarity in a little bit, but that's one of the key points to clarity is you've got to move towards it.
Right.
Right? It doesn't get any clearer staying here trying to figure it out.
Trying to figure it out.
Right.
Now, Before we go to commercial, we're going to start at the beginning. And I am a lover of words. I really, really like words, and I love meaning and language. And we have so many different words to describe things, and I like to look things up. So, what is purpose?
What is purpose?
What is purpose?
So I am not going to give you the Webster's Dictionary. I'm going to give you purpose as defined by Nicole O. Salmon.
Well, it's the only definition that matters today.
And that is that purpose is not a destination, it's a lifestyle. God has styled each of our lives in a very unique and a particular way. And purpose is coming into alignment with that lifestyle design, showing up as that individual and living, working, doing life, doing everything from that posture. That is purpose.
So that is purpose. So purpose isn't where you arrive.
That's right.
Purpose is the journey there.
It is the intentional journey. And I wouldn't even say the journey there, because it still alludes to a destination.
Right.
And I think when we see it that way, then it nullifies everything we do until the destination.
On the path,
if it even comes, right? But what it means is that I am fully aligned, fully aware of everything that's in here and how it's designed to impact out there. And I'm going to journey in that. And as a result, we have what I call purpose-filled pit stops all throughout our lives, where we start seeing, okay, I see why I was meant to be at this job. I see why I was meant to take the bus today and talk to this person, and so on and so on.
I like this.
Yeah.
So when we come back, we're going to start with purpose alignment.
Absolutely, yeah.
So we're going to begin with purpose alignment. So get your pens, hit your share button, and we'll be back right after this message.
Awesome.
Are you retiring smart? Make your home's equity work for you. With your home's equity and our 30 years of experience, the Retire Smart Properties team can help you achieve the quality of life you've always wanted. Our services are 360 degrees. We'll give you advice, take care of staging and selling, and help you find the perfect home and community to transition to. It's time to enjoy the retirement lifestyle you deserve. Visit our website today to learn how you can use your home to retire comfortably. The Retire Smart Properties team, powered by RE/MAX West.
Welcome to Shadow Auto.
Welcome back to this edition of What Matters, and we're here today with Purpose Coach Nicole O. Salmon, and we're going to go into 4 different phases. But during the break, I was just chatting with Nicole, and I was saying to her that, in discovering and really, as cliche as it sounds, walking in my purpose, there's a calmness that comes about.
Absolutely.
And I feel that when you're searching for it, there's this franticness. And, you have different markers. Oh, you're X old, or you're at this point in your life, and you should know what it is that you want to do. And there's a franticness as you search. But when you are finally truly walking in it, there's a calmness inside of you. And it really is a wonderful feeling. And I wish that for everyone listening.
Absolutely.
That they can find it. So the first section that you brought up is purpose alignment. Now, can you explain to us what is purpose alignment?
Absolutely. And the concept came to me because of a health journey that I was on.
Okay.
And so I had a number of injuries when I was much younger. And then I found one day, like, the residual effects of those injuries came back like years later. So I had a really bad pain in my shoulder to the point where I couldn't put my seatbelt on by myself. I couldn't even lift up my purse, right? So, and the range of mobility of my arm, I could only move it to this. So I ended up going through physio and a chiro, and being referred to a chiropractor didn't make any sense to me. I'm like, what does my back have to do with the fact that I can't move my arm, right? So I lay on the chiropractor's table, and he starts adjusting, and I'm just feeling like this pressure in here, and clack, 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 you know, as he's like going down my spine. And I kid you not, I get up from the chiropractor's table, full like a fish, you know, like in water, all because my spine had been brought back into alignment. Prior to that, not only my shoulder, my lower back, my knees, my ankles, all pain all throughout my body. And I remember leaving the doctor and just kind of having this aha moment about purpose and our core and how important it is for us to be completely aligned so that we can have full impact, full mobility,
full
in
range
our
of
lives,
motion,
right? And so thus introduced the concept of purpose alignment. And so one of the things that I take the women through my one-to-one coaching is looking at what areas of your life are out of core value alignment. Because when we find that, one, sometimes life happens and we're not clear of who we are at our core. Two, sometimes we never really spent the time to discover ourselves. We let other people, we let expectations dictate who we are, right? We let labels and circumstances dictate who we are. So we're a little bit cloudy. And so part of the coaching is really proverbially helping women to come into alignment, because when we're not, we start to, since you talked about peace, we start to experience that disruption. We start to experience pain, not in our physical body so much so, but in other areas of our lives.
Yes.
Because our core is out of alignment. How come I'm having a breakdown in this relationship? How come all of a sudden things seem out of whack at work? Why am, and sometimes too, even physically, it manifests.
Oh, it will manifest
physically,
manifest absolutely.
as well.
Or every new projects that you touch, they don't come together. Nothing's
together.
Working. It's almost the reverse Midas touch, where everything I touch turns to crap.
It crumbles.
And it crumbles. And so when you are aligned, and you could use the word spiritually or purpose-wise, or however your mind best grasps it, but I love the analysis of the comparison of going to the chiropractor, because I've heard this from other people, and by the way, I need this chiropractor's information. Where they've said that pains they've had in unrelated parts of their body, they come to realize it is all related. And so if you aren't, and you mentioned values, being in alignment with your values.
That's right.
And so whether you are working against them because of circumstance, you have a job that really doesn't go with what you believe.
Right.
You spend part of your day doing something that doesn't fall in your belief system, or if you never fully developed your own.
That's right.
And you can be 30, 40 years old, still living out your parents' dream, your community's dream,
That's right.
or what you believed you should be based on the things that people have told you.
That's right.
So that's how we fall out of alignment with our value system, correct? I'm right?
You're right on.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right on. And as a result, like you said, different things that seem unrelated. I love what you said, unrelated but related, because it is. The goal is to walk in wholeness. When people talk about wanting to live an authentic life, what you're really saying is, I want to live a life that's whole. I want to finally be in a place where I can bring my whole self to the table. And anytime we start showing up in fragments or pieces, and even if, many of us can relate to having a job that may not be fueling. I do team building with organizations as well. And when I do a values assessment with the team members, a lot of them end up finding out that many of their values are not reflected in the values of the company. Well, it may not mean that it's time for you to put in your resignation tomorrow, but what we can say, well, what other parts of our lives can I make sure that I'm infusing? Because values is the gas that drives us.
I
We
like
think
that.
about a vehicle, right? And I don't know if you've ever been guilty of this, Erica, but I'm infamous for driving my car
Driving on E.
on E, right? And what happens, even if the car doesn't break down with you, even if you get to your destination, the car is not operating at its optimal capacity.
Yes.
So you're driving, the lights flickering. It's going and you might get there, right? The same thing is with our values tank. When it's low, we are not at peak performance. And so while your values you may not be getting that gas at work, that doesn't mean you can't get it at
Elsewhere.
all until, right? You don't have to stay there and suffer. You can say, you know what? This is why I'm feeling this way. When I take an assessment, my husband and I have done the assessment as well. We both know our own top 5 values and each other's. He's so much so he keeps my 5 in his phone, phone, because there are things that he values that is his top, and on my list it's I never value.
Right.
And
Almost like a love language, kind of.
almost, yeah. Along
So
the
like a
same-
value language,
That's
right?
right. A
If you-
values.
yeah,
I love that. A values language. Yeah.
Yes, I like that.
And so how you can look at how else in my life, in my day, can I infuse? Maybe even on your job. Maybe there is an opportunity.
That's what I was
for
going
you
to say.
Infuse
You infuse your values, and change
the culture.
change the
it,
culture,
yeah.
exactly.
You may not be able to. You may not be called to change the entire organization, but you can change your cubicle. You can change your floor,
department.
Your department,
Right.
And I have this theory that I'm like, I believe in the power of God that resides in me. So I feel like it is impossible for me to show up anywhere and it not be changed.
Yeah, not infused because you're that tea bag. You know, there's
Yes.
that wonderful analogy of the potato, the egg, and the tea bag,
Yeah.
and they're all put in hot water, and they all change, right? The potato becomes soft, the egg becomes hard, but the tea bag actually changes
That's
the
right.
water. It
That's
infuses the water. So looking at using your value system as a tea bag and infusing, you know, the world around you so that you can make that balance and
Right.
work in better comfort. And I love what you said that, you know, if you do a value assessment and then you look at what your company does and you realize that it's actually not really in alignment, it doesn't mean, well, you just throw your papers in the air and you quit that day.
right.
Because quite honestly, like, it's not realistic for the vast majority of us. But then you find that elsewhere,
That's
whether it's
right.
in your hobbies, your pastimes, your spiritual life,
That's
your
right.
family life. Turn around and make sure that that is really infused with the essence of who you are, so that you have a balance, that even though you may spend part of your day not doing exactly
Right.
what you would like to do, it doesn't mean that your whole life has to be,
Right.
you know, going against your values. So what other things can you do to help, like, in order to align yourself? I mean, obviously the best way to get your alignment is to contact Nicole and, you know, get a session going. But for our viewers, a way for them to take that assessment and start out. And I do want to mention, or I'll have you mention, your 60 Days of Purpose.
Yes.
Which a friend of mine, Trisha, had me print out, and a couple of us actually ended up, you know,
Nice,
going
nice.
through it.
Yeah.
But what else can people do to take stock of their values and therefore get them into alignment?
I'd say, I mean, the most popular one we hear all the time is pay attention to what excites you. And, you know, in the book I talk about how, you know, a great indicator for purposes is that thing that you love to do, that even if you're excited, if you're exhausted,
You'd
and you
still
put
do
your
it.
hand
Exactly.
to it, you find yourself coming to life, right? But so that's really important. Pay attention to what excites you. Pay attention to what flows out of you without you thinking about it. And it may not seem big and flashy because it's so innate that you might even be overlooking it. And so pay attention to that and try to get as close to and create as many opportunities to be that as possible.
Yes.
But then on the flip side, I also say pay attention to what irritates you. That is a really, what is bringing you pain, right? So
Good
what
one.
is disturbing you? What is it that if it's mentioned in the atmosphere, it brings you tension? And it doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. That might also be a really good indicator of purpose as well, because we know that we don't get all riled up about things we don't care about.
That's right. So it
Right?
might be that thing that you need to fix. So yes, Anisha, I see the time. We are going to go to commercial, but just to touch on something that you said that I think is, I love thinking about what irritates you, but the value of the things that excite you. And I know for a long time there were many little things that excite me, and I thought they were so trivial and so silly. And I was like, you can't make a job out of that. You can't make a career out of that. You know, that's really insignificant. And realizing that there's value in whatever matters to you.
Yes.
It is valuable. So keep that in mind as you write down your list of what really floats your boat and what, you know, really gets under your skin. These things truly matter. So after the break, we're going to go into purpose clarity. We'll be right back after this message. Welcome back to this episode of What Matters. And today we're here with Purpose Coach Nicole O, and we are now going through the different, what would you call these? The different compartments? Pillars? I like that. I love the word pillars. It's just so like foundational.
Yeah.
So the different pillars of purpose. And we just went over alignment. And before we went to commercial, we spoke a little bit about your values and how would you figure out, because sometimes it gets really blurry and you're so busy living life, you almost, I know it's not crazy because I know some of you out there experience it, but you're not even really sure of your values anymore. You're not sure of what matters to you versus what needs to matter to you, you know, the reality of life and then your little fantasy artist life that you have.
Yeah.
But when you have many interests, like, you know, some people, they have so many different things that move them and touch them, and they may feel a bit scattered, you know, like almost like, oh, well, you know, your interests aren't that valid because you're everywhere.
They're everywhere.
You know, if you were serious, you would want to do X, Y, Z, and, you know, that would be a serious path. So what do you say to that?
Well, because you had asked the question about alignment and how do we do it if we don't have a culture and assessment. And I had mentioned, you know, paying attention to what excites you or what frustrates you. But like you said, you might have a lot of things that excite you. And so the goal isn't to identify them and then they're going to tell you what you're supposed to do. But what it's going to do is, I say, when you've identified a few things, let's say several things, look for the common theme. Right? Look for the common theme, because you may feel like it's scattered, but look for the theme. And then once you've identified the theme, then you want to drill down, especially when you start looking at what upsets you. You want to drill down to the why. We're always that wonderful question out there, what's your why? You want to drill down to why that moves you, because there's always a common theme.
Yeah, so, there's always that common thread. You know, if you like hairdressing and nail art, but then you like the bezazzle things, I'm talking about myself right now, and, you know, you like interior design, but you think, you know, shoe design is amazing. Well,
it's telling you something.
There's a common thread of beauty and balance, and they're in different areas, but it all comes back to making things more beautiful. Then there may be another underlying, you know, passion to that. And that, for me, that's providing people with comfort.
Yes.
Because when you're surrounded by beauty, you're more comfortable.
Look at you purpose coaching yourself. And that's what I do. That's what I do.
My guests make me smarter. Don't believe her.
That's
They
what
just
I do.
make me
I say
smarter.
I listen to people's stories and I help them to connect the dots, because sometimes it's hard to step outside of ourselves and see the flow. And for those who think, well, you know what? I was a veterinarian for 13 years and now I want to be a painter. You know, did I waste 13 years. And I say no. That was purpose too. And now we're just changing assignments.
That's right.
We're changing assignments.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think also too, understanding that, as you know, when you have the joy to live a long life, you know, you see that you as a person changes, and that's normal, and it's actually highly desirable.
Yes.
So what was for you 20 years ago, it evolves and it changes. So never look at the things that light you up as insignificant. So going into that, of course, she knows what she's doing. So we led right into that. Purpose clarity.
Yes.
So I'm thinking this means being clear about your purpose.
And so purpose, I define it, clarity, I define it this way, that clarity is a combination of 3 essential factors. How you see yourself, how you see your situation, how you see your God. I believe that as a minister, as a Christian, as a believer, I really believe that God has like this ultimate amazing plan for our lives. So how we see ourselves, how we see our situation. So when we have a healthy alignment and a healthy perspective of each of those 3 components, then we experience what we call clarity in our lives. You know, that time, that season in your life where you're like, yeah, I know exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm excited. The path is clear. I'm walking in clarity. The moment we start to feel a lack of that, one or several of those things have shifted. Okay. So, for example, if I find that I'm starting to feel insecure, I thought I was clear about doing this. Now I'm feeling insecure. What has probably shifted out of alignment is how I see myself. So myself, my situation, my God gives me clarity. I take, maybe my self-esteem takes a hit. Right. Maybe somebody said something that messed with how I see myself. Now I start to feel insecure and I no longer have clarity. So it's a good indication when we start to feel insecure that we need to go back to aligning with what we know to be true about ourselves. Yes. And so one of the things that I get my clients to do is to create a purpose profile, because the reality is when life happens, we get emotionally hijacked. And so even though we cognitively know it up here, when our emotions are in flux, we just can't seem to access it. And so when I have my clear profile over here and I can go back to it and I go, yes, girl, yes, this is what it is. This is one of the ways that on my own hype sheet. Yes, my own hype sheet that I can bring myself back into alignment. So what happens, let's say if I was walking in clarity and then I find myself stuck, I'm in a place of inaction. Usually what's happened, what's taken a hit is how I see my situation. So we don't have a true perspective of what's in front of us. So we may be seeing the thing as bigger than it is. There's a I don't know if you've seen this video on Facebook with this poor little guy who's like screaming his head off in the water, and when they get him to finally stand up. Yes,
he stands up, he's like knee-high.
He's not even knee-high, right?
No danger of drowning whatsoever.
No danger, right? And so sometimes our perspective, for whatever reason, gets shifted.
I like that one.
And so we find ourselves then in a state of inaction. So when you find yourself in a place of inaction, that's a good flag to go off to say, you know what? I need to go back and assess this thing and see it as it really is. And then the third component around purpose clarity is our relationship with God. Sometimes we just get straight up frustrated with God. We have an inaccurate view of who God is in relationship to us or how he's supposed to work in our lives. The other day we were at Costco and we got a amazing parking spot right up front. And I was like, look at God giving us a great parking spot. But then something said, but Nicole, if you parked way on the other side of Costco, it's still, look at God, he provided a great parking spot. The only difference is one was my preferred parking spot. Right. So when our perception of God and how he's supposed to work in our lives is off, then we start to doubt. Right. And so once we feel that we were walking in clarity and we find ourselves doubting what we're supposed to do, again, that's a really good indicator that what needs to come back into alignment is maybe our spirituality and what we are expecting.
I really, God. And you know, that touches on a few conversations I've had recently with some friends, in that, you know, their relationship, like you said, it's a very personal thing, right? Yes. So how you really feel inside and how you practice, that's right, or what you're doing isn't in alignment, again, you're going to feel that clarity. And so with clarity, I would think, okay, clarity is a state of feeling secure and confident that what you're doing is correct. Okay?
I would say no.
Okay.
Because I always say that feelings are unreliable. So if it's I feel that this is correct, I don't know about you, but I can experience clarity here because of something you said, and I'm hyped and ready to go. And by the time I exit the studio,
This isn't a good idea.
it's just not a good idea anymore.
Right.
So I'd say it's less so how you feel about it. It's about the accuracy, an accurate view of what needs to happen, and a knowledge of what steps it's going to take to get me there.
I like this. She's not working in feelings. Let's work in reality.
Yes.
So now, would mindset be more of how you feel?
Mindset is how I stay clear. Mindset is how I manage the clarity, right? How I manage the emotions. And so really mindset is our thought life. And I said to my friend the other day, I started calling myself a mindset ninja because I feel like I spend 95% of the day talking myself down off of proverbial ledges. And so, yeah, I describe it this way to my clients. If you've ever been called by a telemarketer, let's say they're selling long distance, even, it doesn't matter what you say, they've been trained in the art of rebuttals. They have an answer for everything. And so I say, you've got to become a master at rebuttals for your own life. Yeah. If you listen to the story you tell yourself, you are most likely telling yourself anywhere from 1 to 3 of the same. It may sound different at different times, but it's usually the same thing. And it stops us. It stops us from taking action. It stops us from seeing ourselves clearly, seeing our situation clearly, seeing our God clearly. Right. And so if I know what my major mindset setbacks are, then I can start to create a new narrative that I have in my pocket, on hand and ready, so that as soon as I get there, because I will, I have the rebuttal to reel myself back into alignment so I can continue to walk in clarity.
Well, I call them the negative committee, and they like to convene in your head quite often, especially when you're embarking on something new. You know, negative Nancy and doubting Debbie and, you know, can't do Stu all sit down at the table and say, well, you cannot do this.
That's right.
And I love your example of the telemarketer where every, you know, answer, you have that rebuttal, or every thought where you're saying, you know, I have that rebuttal. Okay, the hand has waved. So when we come back from this commercial, we are going to finish up with mindset, go into purpose planning, and speak. And Nicole's going to tell you how to get in contact with her. And we'll speak also to, I just wanted to touch on her 60-day purpose plan.
Sure.
So we'll be right back after this message.
Hello, my name is Anisha, and I'm the production manager of TCN Network. Have you ever wanted to host your own show? Do you have a message to share? Well, you're in luck. We are looking for dynamic and unique individuals to host their own shows. We are seeking people who are committed, motivated, and energetic. Do you want to be the next Jimmy Fallon, Ellen DeGeneres, or Shane and Ryan from BuzzFeed Unsolved? Start here. Fill out the Propose a Show form on mytcntv.com. We're here to educate, support, and build the community. Can you lead by example? Go the extra mile and seek knowledge? Are you humble, disciplined, responsible, selfless, and enthusiastic? Those are our core values. And if you identify with them, you could be part of a growing network that focuses on positivity and uplifting our community. We can't wait for you to join us on TCN Network and hope to hear from you soon.
Are you retiring smart? Make your home's equity work for you. With your home's equity in our 30 years of experience, the Retire Smart Properties team can help you achieve the quality of life you've always wanted. Our services are 360 degrees. We'll give you advice, take care of staging and selling, and help you find the perfect home and community to transition to. It's time to enjoy the retirement lifestyle you deserve. Visit our website today to learn how you can use your home to retire comfortably. The Retire Smart Properties team, powered by RE/MAX West.
Welcome back to this edition of What Matters, and we're here with Purpose Coach Nicole O, and we are speaking about purpose. So everybody who's out there, 2019, new me, new year, after the hype is over and you've gotten over your New Year's, hangovers or whatever, it's time to figure out how we get to this new me. Because it doesn't happen no one here is Cinderella, okay? It doesn't happen overnight. So this is why I was so excited to have Nicole here for this first episode of What Matters for the Year, because she is a purpose coach and she helps you clarify and walk in your purpose, which, when in alignment, will keep calm and happy inside and satisfied and fulfilled and whole. And I think that's what, in so many different ways, all the different terms we use, that's what we want.
We all want.
That's what we want. When people say happiness and then they list, objects, we know that objects won't make you happy, but the mindset that you walk in, that's what's going to change it. So I thank you, Nicole, for blessing us with your presence
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
So we were finishing up with mindset, and I love what she said. She said, mindset is your thought life. It's how you think. And, the things that we do to keep our mindset clear.
That's right.
To keep us in our clarity, right, as we walk in this alignment.
Yes.
And so, like with everything worth doing, and if you're like me and, you fall a little bit more on the artistic side, planning is not very exciting. I like planning, like the big stuff, but then all the fine details, that's kind of where I kind of wander off and wish I had an assistant. But that's where the magic really happens, and that's how we make things work.
Absolutely.
So the truth is, if you want to do all the fun things and you want to be strutting in your purpose, you have to plan.
You do.
You got to plan.
You do.
So tell me how I'm going to relatively painlessly do this purpose planning, Nicole.
Well, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but it will not be painless, especially for my creatives.
I know it.
And I say, a great segue on the topic of mindset is our thought life becomes our lived life, right? So when we're looking at, okay, well, how do I order my lived life? I always say you can with a plan. Like when people are like, how am I going to do this? You can with a plan. And I realized several years ago, so, at the time I was a single mom, I was writing a book, I was working a full-time job in management, I'm a minister, I had so many hats, and I was really overwhelmed, and I realized that it wasn't that I had too much on my plate, I didn't have a strategy for how I was going to manage it.
Right.
And so I host annually a workshop called a Purpose-Driven 2019, 2020, whatever the upcoming year is, planning workshop to help teach ladies the strategy that I personally use to help to stay on top of everything, so everything's not on top of me.
Right.
And one of the key ways to do that is to not compartmentalize our lives, but to overlay everything. So I'm going to try to break it down as quickly.
Expecting that.
Yeah, to overlay everything in terms of the planning. So what typically happens is you maybe have your work schedule, and then you have your schedule for what's happening here for the studio. You have your personal schedule, and so someone meets you up on the road, and they're like, "Hey, Erica, are you free to do lunch?" You pull out your phone, nothing's there, and you're like, "Yeah, I'm free." And then you get to work, and you forgot that was the day you're working late because you had to present, and so we start to, and we're like, we start to feel overwhelmed, we start to feel frustrated. And one of the major things we don't consider in our planning is not just what needs to get done, but what's the dollar equity and sweat equity attached to it.
Yep.
Right? So I may only have 2 things on my calendar this week. That does not mean I'm free, because I know myself and I know the sweat equity that it's going to take for me to do those 2 things, so I can't take on anything else. And so I really encourage people to get out of the habit of just waking up and seeing what you have to do, but really looking at, so in my planning, I plan for the whole year. I break down quarters with the ladies, we break down months, and then we break down the week. Right. But a really good way to help us still feel fulfilled so that we're not just like robots knocking off to-do list is how we make it purposeful is going back to those values. Going back to the larger overarching things that fuel and feed us, and making sure that every week is infused with something that is growing me and moving me towards my greater end.
Right.
So it's not just got to get the groceries, got to get the kids, got to get the how am I going to, what's my theme for the year? What's my theme for this quarter? What's my theme for this week? And how am I going to be intentional about, and if you don't write it down, I always say things that don't get written down, they just don't happen.
Yeah.
Right? And so if we're not careful, our lives are just driven. You know, we start off the new year like, yeah. And then all of a sudden, we're just knocking off to-do items all year long. And then our little phone goes, and you go, oh, shoot, I wanted to have a book written by this summer.
Yeah.
And like we were chatting about on the break, what we forget is we set goals, but we don't set the little strat steps that walk us up to
that major,
actualizing that major
that
goal.
major. And I love the theme for the year, the theme for the quarter, the theme for the week. It's almost like, as I told people years ago when I discovered business plans and how painful they were.
Yes.
A business plan essentially just shoots holes in your whole plan. It is designed to show you everything that can possibly go wrong, all the difficultness. And if, you're going in there all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, you get that help with the business plan, you almost feel broken down, but that's not what it is.
No.
It's to prepare you.
That's right.
It is to prepare you. And so by naming those themes, it really makes you stop and focus.
That's
what is
right.
it that I'm trying to do right now?
Why am I doing this?
Why am I doing this?
Why am I doing 70 hours this week?
What is it for?
What's the end game?
And I love what you said as well, where, we have our phones, and please use your phones. Find apps that will help you, because we carry these things around and we really need to use them to help us.
Yeah.
But you have to factor in your downtime, because you can get very scientific. The 24 hours a day, I sleep for this long, it takes me this long to get to work. So obviously I have that 45 minutes to meet. No, you need to go home and sit down.
Yes.
You need to put your feet up or read a book, so knowing yourself.
Yes.
And what you require to recharge in between major events.
That's right.
Will help you feel like, because my first year when I got to Toronto, that's how I felt. I felt like I was tripping forward. I was moving forward, but it was in a very uncontrolled,
stumbling,
falling forward fashion, because I was just trying to do everything and not factoring the fact I was human and needed rest and needed to recharge and needed to do the things that keep me balanced, and keep me in alignment. So I really love that. And so you were saying, I loved also too what you said about dollar equity and sweat equity.
Yes.
And, I believe I get it, but would you just expand on that just a little bit more?
Absolutely. So you may set a goal, let's say, I don't know, give me a goal that you might have.
A goal to write my book by summer.
Right. And so you have to think, okay, well, what will that mean financially? So when we say dollar equity, I need to know what that's going to cost, right? And then I want to work my way backward from whatever my projected completion date is to say, okay, well, here's where I get paid. Here's how much I can afford to pull out. So then once I start to do the backwards walk, I may realize summer is not a realistic goal.
Right.
That doesn't mean you're not successful. We're just going to move it to a more successful date. And I think sometimes people feel like if they have to move things around that they failed, or if they can't if they brainstorm all their goals for the year, if they can't ram it into 2019, that they're I'm like, all it means is you have so much in you to the overflow that you get to put things down for 2020 and 2021. Everything doesn't have to be on your calendar for the current year. So yeah, what's the dollar sign attached to it? How much energy, right? We all grind at a different pace. And so like yourself, if I teach on a Sunday night, nothing gets done on a Monday because I'm pouring out so much. Yeah. So I block that time off.
Yeah, my Tuesdays this is my Tuesday.
Yeah. So what energy, what sweat is it going to take, and can I afford it? Can I pay up?
Right,
yeah.
in sweat equity and dollar equity. So I really like that breakdown. And so the other thing that I want to cover before we go, because sadly we're running out of time today, there was something that I printed out for my friend. She told me, there's this thing online, I need you to download it and print it for me. And so I did, and then I see Nicole O, Salmon, and I'm like, she's going to be on the show at the beginning of the year. And she said, yay, because she was very, impressed with this plan. So can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah.
And I will put the link underneath and show you how to find it online.
Absolutely. So it's a challenge. It's called 60 Days of Purpose. It's self-guided, and really it's a mindset reset.
Right.
And you can do it any time of the year. I tell people January 1st doesn't have to be your
It's
reset.
just a
Listen,
day.
if in the middle of May you need to hit the reset button, hit it. So I curated 60 days of really short. It's scriptures, it's challenges, it's an activities to help you realign your thought life from a biblical perspective to understand and walk in purpose. So for those of us who are a little bit more who are academia in nature, you've got the readings. For those of us who are kinesthetic learners, there are things for you to do on the weekend to break it up. And it's something you can do on your own. Get a couple of your girlfriends together. And like women have been participating internationally. It's been so exciting when I get a message from Morocco and I see someone going, my 60 days of purpose. And it's been transformational for me, for other women. And what's been birthed out of it is I'm now creating 21 prayers to push you into purpose. And those prayers are directly from some of the key scriptures from 60 Days of Purpose. So that's coming soon.
Amazing. And where can we find it?
If you hop onto my website and join the mail list, it's actually a bonus that I'm sending out to everyone on my mail list.
There you go. And your website is
www.NicoleOSalmon.com. And salmon, I always say, is spelled like the fish.
Yes, that's how I remembered. And how else could we contact you? You also on Facebook?
I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and you can always find me across social media platforms at Nicole O Salmon.
Okay, so that's how you get hold of her. Well, I thank you for joining us
Thanks
today.
so much for having me.
Really feel blessed that you came and you shared your knowledge with us and you shared your journey with us. And for anybody out there that listened to this and found value in it, please share it with someone that you believe it could help. Jot down the notes and tell them, even if it's look at 3742, start there and listen to that part. Share it out, because I think it's really valuable information. And let us know, contact Nicole, contact myself, and let us know if this has helped you, if this resonated with you in any way. So I thank you for joining us. I'm here every Tuesday at 6 p.m. and I will see you next week here on What Matters. Have a good one.